and welcome back. So today we are going to be looking at the 8 assassination attempts by 7 would-be assassins on Queen Victoria's life. Edward Oxford was born in Birmingham in 1822. He went to school in both Birmingham and in London, and after he'd finished school in London he stayed there working as a waiter. On the 4th of May 1840, Edward bought a pair of flintlock pistols and began learning how to shoot with them. Then, on the 10th of June 1840, Edward went to Constitution Hill near Buckingham Palace and waited. Soon, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert appeared in an open horse-drawn carriage. Edward aimed both his pistols at the Queen, but both shots missed and he was overpowered by onlookers. Edward was charged with treason, but he was found not guilty by reason of insanity, and he was sent to an asylum for 24 years before being deported to Australia. On the 29th of May 1842, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert were going along in their open carriage when Prince Albert saw what he described as a little swarthy, ill-looking rascal standing along the mall, aiming a small pistol at the Queen. The man pulled the trigger, but the pistol failed to fire and the man disappeared into the crowd. Prince Albert informed their royal security about this, and it was agreed that Queen Victoria and Prince Albert should ride out again the next day in the hopes that the would-be assassin would come forward again so they would be able to catch him and arrest him. So on the 30th of May 1842, Queen Victoria and Prince Albert went out again in their open carriage. Plainclothes officers were there mingling with the crowd, keeping an eye out for the gunman. Then someone fired a shot. The shot missed its mark and the police were able to tackle the gunman to the ground. The gunman was 20-year-old John Francis, and he was sentenced to be hung and quartered, but Queen Victoria for some reason intervened and commuted his sentence to banishment for life. So 17-year-old John William Bean was not happy with his life. He was born with a hunchback and dwarfism, and he wanted a change to his life, maybe even being sent to the Australian colonies or something. John became fascinated with Edward Oxford, and he actually sold his Bible and some other books, and with this money he bought a flintlock pistol. On the 3rd of July 1842, Queen Victoria was riding along in her open carriage. A crowd was out watching and cheering her, and John pushed his way to the front of this crowd. He took out his gun, aimed it at the Queen, but the gun misfired. John's wrist was grabbed by a member of the public and they took him to 2 police officers, but they did not charge John due to lack of evidence. And John was let go, but witnesses from the scene came forward to say what had happened. So the police started a manhunt for John and they found him at his home in Clerkenwell. John said that he had never meant to hurt the Queen and that his gun was actually loaded with more tobacco than gunpowder, and also that he had actually been pointing his gun at the ground. He was first charged with high treason, but then this was reduced down to assaulting the Queen. And in the end he was sentenced to 18 months hard labour. William Hamilton was a 22-year-old orphan unemployed bricklayer from Ireland. On the 19th of June 1849, Queen Victoria was riding along Constitution Hill with 3 of her children when William, standing in almost exactly the same place that Edward Oxford had been standing, fired his pistol at her. The Queen was unharmed though, and William was tackled to the ground by the head keeper of Green Park and arrested. William said that he had come to London from Ireland at the onset of the Irish potato famine, and he said that he was upset with Britain's lack of assistance during the famine and that he wanted to scare the Queen with a homemade pistol. But instead of a homemade pistol, he actually borrowed one off of his landlady. William also said that he had fired the pistol loaded only with gunpowder because he wanted to go to prison as he was fed up with being out of work. At the trial, William pleaded guilty and he was sent to Gibraltar for 7 years hard labour. Robert Pate was born in 1819 and in 1841 he joined the army in the 10th Light Dragoons. In 1844, while on a tour of duty in Ireland, Robert began to show signs of mental health problems. And in 1846 he left the army and lived the life of a recluse in Piccadilly, London. On the 27th of June 1850, Queen Victoria was visiting Cambridge House in Piccadilly, visiting her dying uncle. A crowd had formed to see the Queen and Robert joined this crowd. When the Queen's carriage stopped outside the gates of where she was visiting, Robert stepped forward and hit the Queen over the head with his cane. The crowd then took hold of Robert. This is the only time out of Queen Victoria's assassination attempt where someone had actually come close to actually harming her. And even though Queen Victoria wasn't badly harmed, her skin did break a bit, so there was a bit of blood and she was left with a scar because of this for the rest of her life. And the next day she did have a black eye and bruising down the side of her head. So at his trial, Robert was sentenced to 7 years penal transportation to Tasmania. Arthur O'Connell was a 17-year-old Englishman with minor Irish aristocracy ancestors. On the 29th of February 1872, while Queen Victoria was out for a carriage ride, Arthur managed to scale the fence of Buckingham Palace and get in undetected. When the Queen arrived back from her carriage ride, Arthur ran up to her and aimed a flintlock pistol at her. But Queen Victoria's personal servant John Brown managed to tackle Arthur to the ground, and the Queen was rushed to safety. Now, it did turn out that Arthur's gun was actually broken and it wouldn't have worked anyway. So when questioned, Arthur said that he didn't actually want to hurt the Queen, he just wanted to scare her into signing documents that would release Irish political prisoners. Arthur was sentenced to a year in prison and 20 strokes of the birch, and Queen Victoria was appalled by the shortness of this sentence. So the Home Secretary negotiated with Arthur and said that he would remove his sentence and remove the whipping if Arthur agreed to move to the colonies. So Arthur moved to New South Wales in Australia and ended his days at Rydermere Hospital for the Insane. Rodrick was born in Scotland. On the 2nd of March 1882, as the Queen departed Windsor Station in her carriage after arriving there by train from London, Rodrick shot at her. There were some boys there from Eton College who were cheering the Queen, and they actually hit Rodrick with their umbrellas before he was arrested. So it turned out that Rodrick had actually been certified insane in 1880. He believed that all the people in England were out to get him and he must injure someone because they were conspiring to deceive him. So Rodrick was tried with high treason and he was found guilty but insane, and he spent the rest of his life in an asylum. So those are all the assassination attempts on Queen Victoria's life. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.